What up YouTube, SpikeRod here with another video, and today we're going to do my top 20 best video games ever. The reason I decided to do a top 20 best video games ever list is because I felt it would make for a fun video. Even though I stated in a previous video that I don't like ranking games, I've come around to liking it a little bit more. Also, I have no plans on making a top 20 worst video games ever because I haven't played enough bad games to make a top 10 list, let alone top 20. The worst video games usually get for me are mediocre. Even though mediocre still counts as not a good game, I feel like calling it the worst video game ever would be too harsh. Anyway, I haven't really thought about what my favorite video games are until now. These are the 10 video games that I consider the most fun I've ever had playing. The ones that I tend to think about the most, the ones that are extremely well made and always put me in a good mood for more reasons than one. Also, there are no honorable mentions, so get ready. This is SpikeRobot's top 20 best video games ever. State of Emergency. I really enjoyed this game. It has a very arcade-like approach to its structure. You can go into certain levels and basically fuck shit up. You can use a wide variety of guns, swords, explosives, and you can even do punches and kicks. The gunplay is actually implemented pretty fucking well. It's also easy to rack up a ton of points. Whether it's killing the corporation forces, or blowing up buildings and cars, or just breaking random shit. It also helps that the game firmly flips the middle finger toward oppressive governments, and the goal is to fucking tear the corporation down. Granted, the story is pretty light on, but the themes are present in the game. I also fucking love that the game supports custom soundtracks on the Xbox. I have listened to some of my music ripped onto the Xbox console while playing this game, and it just makes it more fun. The only reason this game is at number 20 is because it is very light on content. There are only 4 levels and only a handful of game modes. But the game modes I find most fun are the 3 and 5 minute fixed times, where you can pretty much cause as much chaos within those time limits. And Last Clone Standing, where you kill every single corporation bastard in the room. And there are a ton of those motherfuckers. I honestly wish Rockstar would make more arcade-like games instead of the open world games that they're known for doing. I don't know if you feel the same way but this game, or about this game, but hey, I still think it rules. Metal Slug 4. This is another game that, from what I can tell, is not really well liked. Many people consider it the weakest Metal Slug game, so here I am about to defend it. While it doesn't bring much new to the table, there are certain games that are meant to scratch a certain itch. If you have a formula that works and you are damn good at it, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Maybe this is because this was the first Metal Slug game I ever played, but I really think it is a well-designed game. I had a fucking blast shooting up all the enemies on screen, and there are some pretty fun locations that the levels are set in. A lot of people say that the music is fucking bad, but I honestly don't know what they're talking about. I think it sounds really fucking good and memorable. The final level song is especially really good. It also has more levels than the next game and more content. The reason why this game is lower on the list is because the difficulty can be pretty fucking brutal, especially if you play it like a normal arcade game where you lose all your lives and have to start from the beginning. But it is never something that made me want to rage quit. So overall, Metal Slug 4 is a fun game that is a lot better than its reputation makes it out to be. The House of the Dead 3. The third arcade-style game in a row. I really enjoy arcade-style games, but don't worry, This list is not made up of entirely arcade style games. We will deviate a little bit from that style as we go along, but yeah, I think this game is a total fucking blast. I mean, it's an arcade shooter where you shoot zombies. That alone is fucking awesome. Sure, if you play the Xbox version, the blood will be green by default, but you can go into the options menu to switch it to red, which is what I did, because I'm a badass motherfucker. The level design is fairly good, and the story is very campy, and doesn't take itself too seriously. But it actually has some decent character development, with Lisa initially rolling her eyes at her father's advice, but eventually soon realizing what he really meant by that. I will admit the final boss was pretty fucking annoying, which is one of the things that keeps this game on the lower end of the list. But again, it was never something that demotivated me. Overall, the House of the Dead 3 is a really fun game. Doom 3. Okay, now we have something a little bit different. If you're wondering why the original Doom is not on the list, it's because the 4th episode has some really irritating difficulty balancing and is a nightmare for first-time players. I also really fucking hate the final boss of the 2nd episode. This guy is not fun to fight. I don't care what any fans of the game say. Doom 3 is much more consistently well designed. While it is very maze-like and you're limited on ammo, it is usually not to the point of being a handicap. The first half of the game is almost like a survival horror game. It has a wide variety of weapons from which that will never not be a welcome addition. The flashlight gimmick is not only a good way to see the dark areas, but it makes you really think about how you're going to traverse the levels. The levels after the 3 that are set in hell are actually a lot closer to a regular Doom game. The ammo becomes more abundant and the enemy count gets higher. It also has a pretty easy final boss. Maybe too easy for some, but I would rather fight this guy over that bastard in episode 2 of the original Doom. Doom 3 is also a very long game. There are a ton of levels, but it was thoroughly enjoyable for most of that time. Yeah, I really like Doom 3. Red Dead Revolver, the second Rockstar game to enter the list. I'm choosing Red Dead Revolver because I haven't played Red Dead Redemption, and even then, I feel like enough people have praised that game. I just want to give some love to Red Dead Revolver. First of all, I really fucking love the aesthetic. It's kind of a mix of spaghetti westerns and grindhouse movies, which both types of movies have a lot in common. The music even sounds like something that Ennio Morricone would do. Second of all, the gunplay system is surprisingly intuitive. It does a thing where you have to aim manually and shoot the enemies, but what makes it work is that you are given plenty of health and ways to restore your health, and the enemies are not fucking bullet sponges. They will go down fairly quickly. It also helps that you can use pistols, Winchester rifles, and dual pistols for some variety. It is also a pretty fucking long game, though a variety of different level locations and characters to play as, though you will spend the majority of the game playing as Red. I also think it has a pretty fun story with some damn good dialogue here and there. Annie in particular has some damn good lines toward the end of the game when she is talking about the governor. The only reason it's a bit lower on the list is because if you want to replay the levels individually, you have to complete them in a time limit. There's no way to replay them individually normally. So you're more or less forced to play the game in its entirety if you want to replay it. Also, the open world makes it way too easy to get it to your objective, well, except the last time you visited. And there's so little to do that it might as well not be in the game. But other than those two things, this is currently my favorite Western video game. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, this one is my favorite. Perfect Dark Zero. This game has gotten a lot more love in recent times. It's honestly pretty gratifying to know that many people are loving this game. It is not hard to see why. First of all, it is actually a pretty well designed game. The pistol you start out with is actually pretty fucking useful. Usually the pistol in most FPS games would get outclassed by better weapons, but it is surprisingly effective against most of the enemies. It also has a scope, which definitely helps in certain areas. The fact that I used it in some of the later levels should tell you how goddamn good it is. The game is a bit on the easy side. Most of the levels are not fucking frustrating. I also think that the story is very charming and brutal. It has some well-written dialogue. It almost feels kind of like James Bond. Joanna Dark in this game is not only a hell of a great character with a lot of charm, but she is fucking hot. But the only real complaint that I is that the boss is pretty fucking annoying, especially on the first playthrough. He's not impossible to beat, and I have beat him consistently, but he can take a while to fight. I guess some of the lines I could do without, but they're very few and far between. I played this game back in high school, and I still play it to this day, because it's just that damn good. Left 4 Dead. Another zombie-themed shooter. But yeah, this is a pretty fucking fun game. This is one of the games that I play when I can't think of a better game to play on the Xbox 360, and I can easily finish in under an hour. It has a wonderful simplicity to it. You basically get to choose between 4 characters, each of which are interesting if you look them up online. You can also choose between 4 campaigns, which feature a handful of levels where you just shoot up all the fucking zombies in the area. Sure, ammo isn't exactly abundant, but unlike Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, you're given enough ammo to use your weapons for a pretty fucking extended period of time. It also has a fairly well done teamwork aspect where you can get revived by other team members, and you can revive team members yourself. You can also heal yourself, or they can heal you. I guess my only real gripe is that the witch enemy is a cunt, and that I could never be able to kill without getting encapsulated. And I hate the enemy that vomits on you. But overall, this is one hell of a great zombie FPS game that I can definitely see why it was so popular. Gunstar Heroes. This is the oldest game on the list. It was released for the Sega Genesis. But this game is a fucking blast. It is the only non-Sonic Genesis game that I've beaten so far. This is because, unlike most Genesis games, there are unlimited continues. I think this is probably the only game to feature them. A lot of people say that this makes the game too easy, but I don't know. There were some parts that, even on the easiest difficulty, that were pretty fucking hard. But what I really like about the game is that you can shoot up a ton of enemies and there are explosions fucking everywhere. It is pretty goddamn insane. There are also many types of weapons to choose from, and the levels are well designed enough to fit whatever types that you want to use. The second level on easy mode also has a pretty dynamic way of fighting bosses, The bosses are randomized, and if you beat at least 3 of them, you complete the stage. There's also a dynamic kind of dice game in the 4th level. The only thing that I dislike is that the space level is pretty fucking hard, or almost too hard for my liking, but it is definitely beatable. Same thing with the final level, but I think it makes it all the more satisfying when you finally do. Overall, Gunstar Heroes is a classic. Spartan Total Warrior. A hack and slash game where you play as the Spartans. Come on, that is some badass shit. Anyway, it's very much like God of War. The main difference is there are a ton of fucking enemies in the levels. It is legitimately satisfying to hack and slash away at them. The levels are also really long. I don't mind longer levels as long as the gameplay is engaging enough to keep me playing. That is what I get from this game. I also think it has a decent cast of characters, including the main hero, his brother, and the female warrior. There were some pretty fucking annoying levels, mainly the ones with the green-blooded monsters and the escort. And the escort of Alchemedes was pretty fucking annoying, but it was tied to a level that was generally pretty well designed. I also think the powers that you are given, mainly the freezing of all the enemies in the room, is particularly useful against the Romans, who are a bit more beefy. I usually try to take them out first. I think it's a pretty well made game that is overall pretty fucking fun and unique. But it is not my favorite hack and slash game. You will find out which one that is later. Black. Another one of my high school video games. This game is simply a goddamn blast. It actually has a pretty good framing device in its story. It has Keller being very close to being thrown in prison. However, if he tells a defense attorney everything that happens, he can be set free. All the missions are in the game are parts of the story that he tells. I disagree wholeheartedly with Camp Xbox when he said that this story is not memorable. I think it is really fucking good and a bit more complex than usual. But the gameplay is really fucking good. Most of the levels are extended and usually have a little over 100 enemies to shoot. It also helps that you can blow a lot of shit up. The music is infrequent, but when it does come up, it is really good. I think one of the composers was Michael Giacchino, so you know it's going to be good. I also love the ending cutscene. So overall, Black is a great game. BloodRayne. This is another campy horror-themed video game. It features Rain, who is a wickedly sexy half-vampire and half-human heroine, who tries to fight off all the creatures and the Nazis that are fucking everywhere in the area she is in. I think she's voiced by Laura Bailey. Anyway, the mechanics are implemented pretty well. You can either slice up enemies or shoot them. Some of the enemies are more useful to slice up than others. But if you slice up enough enemies, you can enter Blood Rage mode, where you can tear them to fucking pieces. There are also a ton of blood pools on the floor, which just adds to the enjoyment factor. The levels are also intricately designed to the point where they almost feel like real places. I also fucking love the part when you take control of the war machine and you get to blow shit up. The distorted voice on Rain was a nice touch. The final boss is a little confusing, but when you know what to do, it is pretty easy. I also love the final cutscenes. So overall, this game is a total goddamn blast. Vanquish. I played this game for the first time in high school. While I don't love it as much as I did back then, I still think it's a really fucking good game. I think it is really fucking fun to shoot up all the fucking robots in the levels. It helps that you are given plenty of ammo to the point where you will very rarely, if ever, run out. The assault rifle and the machine gun are both useful weapons. I also like that the game has a pretty decent variety of enemies. There's red robots, big robots, spider-like robots, and even rare instances of blue robots. I also think that the suit that Sam wears is pretty cool and lets you accelerate when you need to. I will admit, most of the bosses suck in this game, and the only good level in the 4th act is the first level. But the fact that I'm willing to put this game higher, even despite all that bullshit, really goes to show how good it is. I also found that the story gets fairly emotional toward the end of the game, and while some of the plot points could have been conveyed a little better, the moment where Elena cries because she thinks Sam is dead still gets me emotional every time I play the game, which makes the ending reveal all the more uplifting. It even has some decently well-written dialogue between Sam and Elena by the end. I also enjoy the credits minigame. This is a pretty goddamn good game that I just can't help but keep playing. God of War 2. You know how I said Spartan Total Warrior wasn't my favorite hack and slash game? That is because this game is. God of War 2 is a game that surpasses the original for me. It has many of the same elements that made the first game so much fun, including the gory combat, which is a total fucking blast, the intricate levels that are massive in size and scale that feel like places that you could go to on vacation, the puzzles that really make you think about how to traverse the levels. They even have a sexy threesome minigame, which is always fun to play. But I really fucking love the power-up that Kratos has that allows him to swing the blades of chaos in a spinning wheel. And it is pure game-breaking destruction. But the thing I love the most about God of War 2 is the story. This is a game that really shows how evil the Greek gods really are. They have Prometheus have a piece of himself be eaten over and over again, which is really fucking cruel. That was unjustifiably given, in my opinion. By the way, this was in the actual Greek mythology. Also, Zeus burns Sparta down because he thinks Kratos is sick in the head when he really didn't do anything up to this point. Whenever I got to the point when Athena tries to persuade Kratos to stop doing this, I just immediately try to break that statue down. And I mean, it might even just say, shut the fuck up. Because I know it's not true. So, when I play this game, I have no problem rooting for Kratos. This game is, more than anything, makes you question if a god that created you and your world is really worth obeying. Because it really doesn't seem like he would be if he is just torturing you in this life. And that's why God of War 2 is my personal favorite in this series. Shadow the Hedgehog. You knew that a Sonic game, or at least a game related to the Sonic franchise, would make it on the list at some point. But I ended up going with Shadow the Hedgehog. This is not a joke, by the way. I genuinely think it is my favorite one. First of all, to those who say that the controls and camera are bad, I almost got a question if we were playing the same game. I think the reason people say the controls are bad is because Shadow reaches his maximum speed immediately, and that when he's going really fast, he turns at the same speed as when he is moving slower. You also have to move the thumbstick. You also have to really move the thumbstick in order to make sharper turns. However, this is only really an issue when you're going at your fastest possible speed. And even then, most of the speedy areas where you go really fast have barriers that prevent you from falling. And when you're about to fall off, Shadow will stop dead in his tracks. So it's impossible to die in them. There are also ways to stop running, like jumping or letting go of the thumbstick. I also haven't really found any instances of the camera being a nuisance to a significant degree. The gunplay was very well implemented and a fucking blast of an addition to the Sonic gameplay. You get a wide variety of weapons, and it has an auto aim system on most of them, the weapons, which was the right call for this type of game. The homing attack and the grinding are the best they've ever been up to that point. And even if you do have bad luck with the homing attack, you can just shoot the enemies. And it is easier to do, and it's even easier to do on the smaller enemies. To just shoot them. If anything, this is actually one of the easier Sonic games. Most of the reason as much as I love the previous Sonic games, most of the previous ones are pretty fucking hard, and they also have at least one or more janky level or design aspect. Shadow the Hedgehog actually polishes the mechanics to the point where they might as well be the best. The only reason I can't put this game higher is because most of the bosses kind of suck, and some of the dialogue in the English dub, or at least, is a little too flowery. I think it is a little bit better in the Japanese cutscene, although I love the English version of the Circus Park cutscene for that famous line by Shadow.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
But on the other side of things, most of the stages are pretty well designed, with obvious exceptions like Central City and the Doom. But the thing that I love most about the game is that it reminds me of the edgy 2000s, which were the fucking best. It was a game that led me to get into hardcore shooter games that were around at the same time. But we still have more games to talk about. Gears of War 3. I actually had a tough time choosing which was my favorite Gears of War game, but it was a tie between Gears of War 2 and 3. But I ended up going with Gears of War 3. Why? Because I feel it has the most polished gameplay out of all three games. While the ammo count is a bit lower, it usually is enough to get you through a good chunk of the stages. It also has a wide variety of enemies to fucking shoot and slice up with your Lancer. You not only have the usual locusts that come, but you also have these emulsion-themed monsters that explode into greenish goo. The gore doesn't appear until later in the game, but it is still pretty frequent and fucking satisfying. It also has a pretty fun arcade mode in addition to the campaign. The story not only has some of the best written dialogue in the series, it also has some of the most emotionally intense moments in the series. More specifically, Dom's death. It also has a fucking perfect ending that I like a lot more now than I ever have before. It is so good that I feel the series should have stopped right then. Or maybe the next game should have been just a prequel of some sort. Whatever the case, there's a reason why this game and the previous two games are remembered so fondly. Serious Sam. Just to clarify, I'm talking about the Xbox version. This version has all the levels of the two PC games. Anyway, this is probably one of the best designed FPS games ever fucking made. It has a wide variety of weapons, including but not limited to pistols, 2 shotguns, a Tommy gun, a machine gun, a laser, a rocket launcher, and even a cannon. There are also a ton of fucking enemy types, as well as lots of enemies in these stages, but it never feels too overwhelming. You can easily shoot them down pretty fucking easily. You can also use any weapon you like as long as you have enough ammo. The levels are also intricately designed. There are plenty of secrets you can find that will give you a higher score. Also, the music is really damn good at certain parts. The Grand Cathedral song, the first one, is probably the best song in the game. I also kind of dig the tongue-in-cheek style that this game has. It leads to some pretty clever bits of humor. Admittedly, some of the jokes make me roll my eyes, but the ending joke was damn good and pure gold. So yeah, Serious Sam is a really good game. Resistance Fall of Man. This is probably one of the best PS3 exclusives. A lot of people say that it has aged poorly, but I disagree. I think it holds up really fucking well in 2026. It has 2 weapons that are really fucking fun to use. They are the MA-103 Carbine and the Bullseye. It is fucking fun to shoot up the aliens in the room. I think the tank areas are also pretty goddamn fun, where you can move around and basically just blow shit up. The level design is fairly good too, and the game is a decent length. I also really dig the dark and gritty aesthetic, and I love the retro-futuristic world this game has. While Nathan Hale doesn't have much dialogue, I still ended up rooting for him, and I kind of like how Parker is the one to narrate the cutscenes. This game is not all doom and gloom from start to finish. There are moments of legit victory. This is a perfect game to play on a rainy day or at night. Battlefield 3. This is a fucking great game. This is probably my favorite FPS game of the 2010s. The weapons you get are fucking fun to use, and you can easily shoot the enemies on screen. The enemy AI is surprisingly well done. They don't just stand in one place and beg you to shoot them. They actually try to strategize, but it is never to the point where they are impossible to take down. There are also plenty of opportunities to blow shit up. Even the other types of gameplay and mechanics are implemented pretty well. The controls on the tank may be a little confusing, but when you figure them out, they're not too bad. And it is pretty fun to blow shit up in the tank. I guess maybe the mall level was pretty goddamn annoying, but some of the later levels are an absolute blast to play. It also has some pretty well-written dialogue between the soldiers, even if it is pretty vulgar, but hey, I think it would be jarring if it wasn't vulgar, considering these guys are dealing with the scum of the fucking earth. They're dealing with some pretty slimy bastard. I also like how the story is about trying to prevent a nuclear war, but still manages to boost military morale. It never feels like these elements attack each other. This game makes me want to play some of the other Battlefield games. Max Payne 2. You know Max Payne was going to end up on the list at some point, but yeah, I think the sequel is better. I still fucking love the first game, but this game makes some objective improvements. The gameplay is still really fucking fun, with tons of enemies to shoot and plenty of times to use bullet time. There are also a decent amount of weapons to use, including dual Desert Eagles and Berettas. But this game also has a Kalashnikov. Come on, that is fucking awesome. But the improvements it makes are that the dream sequences are much better in this game than they were in the first game. They're not as long and don't make you do some really fucking frustrating platforming. I also like that you can play as Mona in certain parts of the game. even if her gameplay is the same as Max. But hey, you can't fault a gameplay style when it works. I also think the story is much better than the first game. Max has a pretty well-written lines of dialogue that are very moody and actually quite thought-provoking. But Max is still pretty cocky and a confident fighter, who is always able to come up with a plan that works. This game is almost kind of a deconstruction of the film noirs it's inspired by. It touches on the corruption within the police, because one of the people who is siding with the gangsters is someone who's working for the police. Mona is also a character that, while you don't know her true motives, you could either see her as a hero or a villain, and the story would work so well. They are actually they're actually pretty perfect together, because Max himself is also a morally great character. But the ending cutscene is really fucking good and has one of my favorite lines.
I had a dream of my wife. She was dead, but it was all right.
But it is now time for the moment you've been waiting for. The best video game I've ever played, which is... Wet. I fucking love this game. It is a grindhouse style shooter where you basically go in the stages that are basically obstacle courses and parkour off ledges and basically do a bunch of acrobats. The game really encourages you to get some really fucking stylish kills by either jumping around, sliding, or wall running. These mechanics are very well implemented and are a ton of fucking fun to use. Levels are also really long and have very good and intricate level design, with Chapter 11 head-to-head being one of my favorite levels in any video game for that reason. I also love the abundance of gore and explosions. I also like the parts where you command a Gatling gun and fuck shit up. The parts where you go into a red, white, and black aesthetic are also really fun, and I like the aesthetic that it has. I also think that Ruby is a goddamn great, strong female character that is sexy and vulgar. She's also voiced by Elijah Dushku, which is a plus in my book. I guess some of the dialogue is too nasty. And I could do without one ad, and the car levels are the weakest part of the game, but these are very minor in the grand scheme of things, and the car levels are not a huge part of the game. In fact, they're pretty goddamn short. Besides, the challenges are pretty fun to do, and you have access to new weapons. And you can buy stuff between levels with all the points you get. Sure, the game is repetitive, but I don't care. I honestly prefer games that stick to a core that is engaging and intoxicating to games that try to implement tons of fucking gameplay styles that are not all that fun. And that is why Wet, at least as of right now, is the best video game I've ever played. So anyway, I'm Spike Robot. If you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel and feel free to support me on Patreon and follow me on Instagram. If you support me on Patreon, you get exclusive updates on my next video. And if you follow me on Instagram, you can see all the pictures I took in Venice, Italy, so go check those out if you want. I'll see you next time. Honor the freedom, Jingos.